the lunar eclipse that we just had at 15 degrees of Pisces, September 7th, 2025. And I'm recording and posting this on September 7th, 2025. Didn't actually operate the way that an eclipse would or could or should operate if it were visible. This particular eclipse was not visible anywhere in the United States. So, for all intents and purposes, this was really just kind of like a slightly amplified full moon in the sign of Pisces. A few weeks ago, or maybe it was months ago now, I did a video where I showed the state of Texas and how we had those two eclipses where the total path of totality, one of the eclipses in 2017, I think went this way, and then the one in 2024 went the opposite way. Well, it went. So there was an X created by these eclipses. Because the path of totality was so strong in the state of Texas and we could visibly see it, that was these two were very significant lunar stories for the state of Texas and other parts of the United States as well. It's just, basically, this is all to say that where there is the most visible shot of said eclipse, that's where you're going to see much more activity, much more of the story playing out for a longer period of time. You're going to get a little bit more bang for your buck on that lunar activity. Likewise, if you can't see it, you're not going to get that bang for your buck. Okay, so that's just to get that part out of the way. But it doesn't mean that it's not an important lunar event, especially if you have prominent placements in the mutable signs. Pisces, Sagittarius, Gemini, and Virgo. You guys are going to feel this a little bit more, especially if those are around 10 to 20 degrees of those signs. So let's get into my interpretation, and then I'll do separate videos for the horoscopes, so stay tuned. I never really do horoscopes, but I feel like doing them today, so let's do it. I talk too fast. Okay, I've caught my breath. Let's dive back in. We are looking at a lunar eclipse in Pisces, and it is conjunct the North Node, meaning that because it is a full moon, we are reaching some sort of culmination of a story, but we also have a direction we need to go once this shit wraps up. Now, I want you to think back to September 17th, 2024. That was the first eclipse in this cycle, the Pisces Virgo axis eclipses. And then the new moon in Pisces, February 27th, 2025, that was a continuation of the story as well. So think about what was going on around those dates. This is going to be some sort of culmination of that, and it's going to have you wrapping up a cycle, a story, and then possibly going a new direction or down a different path, but along the same lines or along the same topic or theme as the one that you're wrapping up, okay? So, this eclipse is ruled by Jupiter. It's a Pisces eclipse. Now, I am an ancient Hellenistic astrologer that does allow some sort of the newer, like, traditional astrology to creep in, and that I do use the modern planets, but I don't use them as rulership. So this is to say that if I am looking for Piscean themes looking at the Pisces house in my chart, I'm going to look for Jupiter, not Neptune. So this, and I'll talk on Neptune in just a second, because I do use Neptune in transit, just not in rulership. But the eclipse that we're looking at is ruled by Jupiter. So you are going to look to Jupiter to see where you're going to receive some support, or if it's negatively aspected or dignified, maybe it's going to give you some challenges to make you really work for the lesson of said moon or eclipse or new moon or full moon, whatever, right? Full moons are often going to be times when you are trying to balance or find some sort of agreement between two starkly different energies along the same topic or theme in your chart. The Pisces Virgo axis is a lot about health. Pisces is more mental health. Virgo is more physical health. Pisces deals a lot with the dream state. Virgo deals a lot with the day-to-day state. Pisces tends to be more escapist when it comes to dealing with issues. Virgo's going to try to organize it all a little bit more. So there are two very different energies, but ultimately it all comes down to health and finding the balance between both of those energies. You'll see often when we are having full moons or new moons or eclipses, or you're just dealing with a lot of Pisces Virgo energy, that you are dealing with topics and themes related to how much one impacts the other. How much does your mental or spiritual health impact your physical, and vice versa? So at this time, you might be dealing with health issues, mental or physical. Because the moon is in Pisces, it's likely leaning a little bit more along the mental health route versus the physical health route, but that doesn't mean that you're not experiencing both. If you are experiencing both, the issue to solve or to find balance within is probably more the mental, because we are dealing with Pisces energy. The ruler, or Jupiter, is forming a trine to the moon and a sextile to the sun. So we are receiving some support from the ruler of the moon. And it's good support. It's well dignified support. It's well resourced support because it's in Cancer, the sign of its exaltation. So in the horoscope videos that I make, by your rising sign, I'll go into a little bit more detail as to what this might mean, where this support might come from, because that support's going to come from whatever house Jupiter is sitting in your chart. So pay attention to that. Now, the other thing I want to talk about with this moon, and I'll go ahead and put it up really quick, is the placement of Mars and Venus in this particular chart. Okay, I'm back. I can't figure out how to make myself tiny again. I've done this so many times, but it's not working right now. So I'm just going to get out of the way for a second. So we have the moon down here in the sign of Pisces. Sun is in Virgo. Venus is in Leo. And Mars is in the sign of Libra. So whenever you have a planet flanking the sign of another planet, that particular planet doesn't really have a lot of access to the energy of that sign. They don't really understand how to make it work. So in this case, the sun is being flanked by both Venus and Mars. And this is really more my personal interpretation on what this means in this chart. What this will typically mean is the sign opposite. So Pisces could possibly form an inconjunct to these planets. It does not form an inconjunct to Mars because Mars is at 20 degrees. An inconjunct needs to be within 3 degrees, but it forms an exact inconjunct to Venus at 15 degrees. So let me talk about how I see that. Just give me 1 second. So how I am interpreting this is that we are trying to, at this point, we're finding balance between our mental and our physical health, supported by the sign of Jupiter, which is all about spirituality, faith, philosophies, expansion. But we're looking at where do we pull on this energy, the masculine or the feminine? I feel like we are in a place, both physically as a human and on a mundane level, on a collective group level, where we've always leaned more towards the masculine side of things. I think that this particular moon, because of that inconjunct, that exact inconjunct to Venus, is telling us that we need to lean more into feminine energy. We need to lean more in towards love and being receptive and allowing people to come to us, to allow people to give to us, to lean into our healing journey by allowing ourselves to be a little bit more loving and receptive, which is not traditionally how we do things here, especially in the United States and, this culture as a whole. So that's how I'm interpreting that aspect of the moon. Let me know what you think and stay tuned for the horoscopes. Let's go. I never do these. I'm excited, so go check them out. I'll see you there.